Hey guys, what is up? I am TJ. This is Uncommon, and so are you. Hey man, welcome to this week's episode. If you're new to Uncommon encourages men to be the husband, dad, and leader they were always meant to be. So we have supportive information that'll be listed in the video description. So be sure to hit the subscribe and notification button and leave us a comment that you're here. We can have a conversation. So let's jump into it. This week, we're talking to husbands. In fact, that sitcom husband. Now, we all know him. He's in what seems like every sitcom that has a family. That funny, quirky, goofball, mentally challenged, out of touch kind of guy that's painted with the same trope over and over again. And it makes me wonder, yes, it's a little funny. Two, is it based on someone? Because they all seem to have some characteristics of maybe someone we know. It could even be us. So I wanted to list a few sitcom husbands that I have grown up with on the comedy side over the years. Now, some of these are going to take you back. And you're probably going to say, TJ, how old are you? Very old. See the whiteness in the beard. But here are a few. Al Bundy from Married with Children. Homer Simpson, obviously cartoon, but even cartoons like Family Guy and American Dad, one of the same kind of characteristics. Archie Bunker from All in the Family. Ray Romano from Everyone Loves Raymond. Tim Taylor from Home Improvement. George Jefferson from The Jeffersons. Jim Belushi from According to Jim. And one that will take you back to black and white television, Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners. Now, many of these are either very old or a couple of these are cartoons. But you can see, if you look at those, there's some common traits among them. And while there are new sitcoms out today, I imagine that many of the family dynamics, the dad is painted in a picture that sometimes is not as flattering, a little bit goofy, those dad jokes, all these little things that make you wonder, is that stereotype based on someone? So now I could care less about network television or Hollywood or even how society sees us, but we should care how God sees us. So let's take a moment to look at 10 traits of a godly man. And then I have a challenge for women. You're not getting off easy this week, ladies. So, number one, a man after God's own heart. Who we always think of? David, obviously. And David had his issues. Number two, a man that puts God first in his life. A man willing to pray for and with his wife in family. Number four, a man that prays for wisdom. Men, if you're not seeking wisdom on a daily basis, I can see why we are painted in a way that we may not know what's going on around us. I don't know about you, but that is my number one prayer when I go to God on a daily basis, is for wisdom. I need truckloads of it. Number five, a man that is a good steward with his money. And I say his money is actually God's money. There's always going to be debt and bills and problems and things you spend your money on, but being a good steward with it, tithing, giving back, putting it to good use to grow the kingdom is important. Number six, a man with a great work ethic. Man, there is nothing more important than having a guy who you can trust that is going to get up, go to work, and do that every day he's supposed to. Now, if anything, we've seen in the last year and a half or so that that has been a challenge for some guys. May have gotten laid off, may have gotten their hours cut or whatever. And so many times men tie their work, their role there, to their identity. And that's not fair, but we tend to do that because we're locked into providing and just, a sense of accomplishment. So, but a guy who has a great work ethic is a big benefit to a family. Number 7, a man that displays the fruit of the Spirit. Man, that is critical. That is critical in their walk, in their family. They're going to respond to that in a major way. Number 8, a man who is willing to be a spiritual leader. And I say that, make that distinction of a spiritual leader, because one of the things we get most of, like when someone, like, say, submits an article or downloads something like one of our devotions or a book, the amount of leader compared to husband and dad are usually like 3 to 1. Apparently, everyone just assumes or thinks of themselves as a leader, and that's a great thing. It's, can we be a spiritual leader? What kind of leader are we? Because there are good leaders and there are bad leaders. Let's focus on being a great spiritual leader that points people to Christ. Number 9, a man who takes responsibility. Wow, this is something of a lost art form. We tend to, as humans in general, play the blame game. When we run some ads on social media encouraging guys or stating a statistic around like divorce or fatherless families, the number one feedback we get says something like, what about the women? And we're always, look, we're a men's ministry. We're talking to men. Stop playing the excuse of, well, what about them? Let women's ministries focus on them. We're focusing on men. We're encouraging, challenging men to change. If you don't have to change, you think you're doing a great job, you may need to change because you may have a pride issue. We all need to be working at changing to be more like Christ. And number 10, a man who respects you. A man who respects his wife. Remember, we're talking to husbands here. So a man that respects his wife, how he talks to her, how he treats her, how he loves her, how he cares for her, even how he challenges and supports her, makes a difference. Now, we said we're going to let the ladies off easy this week. Challenge for you women. You want a godly man? Put God first in your life. You want a godly man? Encourage your man. You want a godly man? Challenge your man from a godly perspective. You want a godly man? Pray for your man. And finally, you want a godly man? Don't settle for a man not worthy of yourself. So, our Truth and Grace segment. Truth, uncommon man, be the man you were always meant to be. Stop making excuses of, well, they didn't do this, well, what about her, or whatever. Let's focus on ourselves. Let's focus on growing and changing ourselves, since that's really the only change we can make is with ourselves. Matthew 5:16 in the grace section. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. And so the challenge this week is I challenge you and I both to consider the kind of man we are in God's eyes, as well as your wife's eyes. Not that you need her approval, but she will appreciate and benefit from the effort that we put in to being more like Christ. So, thank you for joining us today. I pray that this has been a blessing to someone who needs to hear it. And with that being said, since you're going to be something, be uncommon.